Just preparing. Cool. Elaine, I think we lost you. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah. Hello, everyone. We are live. Just to start, to give it a few minutes for people to join us. Maybe we can, I don't know, here in the UK, when we need to fill up some time and break the awkward silence, we normally talk about the weather. So maybe you guys can talk to each other about the weather, can say what the weather's like where you are, maybe say where you are first and what the weather was like today. Yeah. So go on, you talk about the weather while I'll share our link on Facebook. Janice, why don't you start?
Yeah, I am in upstate New York, and I woke up this morning and it was all white. So there was like some snow, but now the sun is out and all the snow has melted away. So it's a little chilly still outside though, but nice and sunny. So I got to open up the curtains and get some sunshine inside. But yeah, that's the weather here.
In Canada, like 2 weeks ago, we had a probably like 1.5 foot blizzard. Like, so we had like a snowstorm, and then there's like 1.5 foot of snow, and it's still there. And I don't know what that is in centimeters, but a lot of centimeters. And then we've had like some really cool days, like -20 or -30, but then like this week has been really warm, like -5 Celsius. Yeah.
Okay, that's warm.
Yeah, it's like super, like it's not, this doesn't usually happen in Canada at this time. It's usually like -20 or -30. So this is a really weird year.
Crazy. Elaine, what about you? What's the weather like there?
I'm in South Africa, Cape Town, and it's literally all 4 seasons in one day. So it gets windy, it gets stormy, it gets really hot, it rains for like a few minutes, and then it gets cold, like really, really cold. So the weather,
Wow.
it's windy, but in the morning it's quite warm because I remember I couldn't even take my jacket with me. But on our way back, I was like, I should have taken it. So that's how Cape Town is like. It's windy now, but you'd find that by the end of this conversation, it's either raining or it's hot again. In the evening this side, I think it's, let me confirm, it's 9 p.m. on our side.
Yeah, so a little bit of a difference. Okay. Well, yeah, here in Norwich, it's been kind of rainy today. I felt really cold when I went outside, but I think it was around 5 degrees Celsius. And really, yeah, cloudy, not sunny at all. And it gets dark really early. I think it's the same for Canada and US. But anyways, I think we're good to go. I hope people had some time to join us. So welcome everyone who are watching us right now. Welcome to the girls. I am Julia. I'm a staff worker for Friends International in Norwich. And at Friends International, what we do is to welcome international students to the UK and help them to grow friendship with local people when they come here to study. So normally, normal times, we would have face-to-face events, we would have a weekly cafe, we would organize trips to the coast and to other interesting places in Norfolk, and we would have loads of opportunities to meet locals face-to-face. But because of the current situation in the whole world, we are doing everything online. So we still have opportunities to meet people, meet local people, but online. So I'll be talking about that a little bit later. So we invited these 3 lovely ladies who joined us today. So we have Janice from New York, or she's in New York right now. We have Rachel in Canada, and we have Elaine in South Africa. and they came here today to chat to us a little bit about their experiences as students during the pandemic. They've never been to Norwich before, but they are students like most of you guys watching us, so I'm sure they will have loads of experiences that you can relate with. I think we can get straight into it. If you are watching this, we would love to hear from you, hear your comments and questions, so you can put that on our chat on YouTube or Facebook. And if you are watching us right now, why don't you say hi, tell us your name and where you are, right in the comments. So let's get into it. Let's get to know the girls a little bit better. So I'm going to start with Rachel. So Rachel, tell us a little bit of who you are, where you're from, where you are, what are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, so my name's Rachel. I live in Saskatoon, which is in central Canada, I guess. And it's like a very inland province. There's not really any bodies of water except for like small lakes. And it's like a prairie province. So there's like fields everywhere you turn unless you're in the city, and then you just see buildings. Yeah, and I've lived here for 3 years, and I'm studying accounting at the University of Saskatchewan, and I live, like, my parents live in a different province than me, so I live with my brother, his wife, and my other brother.
Cool. What about you, Elaine? Tell us a little bit where you are, what do you study?
I am Elaine, as I've mentioned, and I'm from South Africa. I was born and bred in South Africa, actually, in Limpopo province. Is an inland province, but I reside in the Western Cape now for study purposes. So I'm in Cape Town. This is my fourth year in Cape Town, actually. Roughly 35 hours I come from, so I'm a bit away from home. And yes, that is about me. I'm a final year law student at the University of Western Cape, and yes, that's about me.
Cool. What about you, Janice? You have a friend with you today as well.
I do. This is Cora. I'm house sitting right now, so she's just hanging out with me. But I am from upstate New York. I live in like Bradford, New York, but I go to school at Elmira College in Elmira, New York. And so a lot of people get it confused with New York City. I'm not in New York City. Very, very different from New York City. Complete opposite. But I am studying nursing and human services at Elmira College, and I am in my senior year. So I'm almost done, which is really nice.
Cool. And girls, tell me a little bit about the different places where you lived before. So either if it's different countries or different cities. Rachel, have you always lived in Canada or Saskatoon?
I'm not from Saskatoon. I'm from a different province called Alberta, which is west of Saskatchewan. And I grew up like northern Alberta, so it's very rural. And it's dark really early there in the winter. Yeah, and I lived there for like until I was in grade 6, I think. And then I moved to New York, where Janice lives. I lived in that area for 5 years, like with a couple years in between going to Canada and back. So, and then I graduated high school at the same high school as Janice. And then I moved to Saskatoon. I had never actually been to Saskatoon before I started university here.
Wow.
So it was a new experience, but I really like Saskatoon. It's like a smaller city in Canada. It's like 200,000 or 300,000, but the university is really nice, and it's just like it's a chill school.
Nice. What about you, Elaine? You said you were far away from home. So tell us about the places where you have lived.
I've always been in South Africa. It's just that I am in different provinces. So I am in Western Cape, as I've mentioned. I'm hoping to go further in the coming years, hopefully. But I've always been in South Africa, and I'm in Western Cape now. Yes.
Cool. What about Janice?
Yeah. So I've grown up in this area my entire life. I went to school, literally like high school, 30 minutes from where I'm at college. So I stayed very local. And I've just know this area and been here my entire life, but was adopted from China. So when I was a baby, so that's cool. So I guess I lived in China for a little bit too, but yeah, but that's me. So just same city, basically my whole life.
Cool. Now, we would like to know a little bit more about your daily life. So how would you describe a normal day in your lives? Maybe let's turn it around a little bit, go the opposite way. Janice, why don't you start? What's
Yeah.
a normal day in your life?
So I'm not a morning person. So if I can, Rachel knows this, she can attest. But if I can, I definitely like to sleep in. I'm a night owl, so I'm up really late or early in the morning. And then I tend to sleep in late into the afternoon if I can. But well, right now, a normal day in my life, and I can't wait for break, is just school. And since it's all virtual, it's really been just getting up like regular, but being in my room and kind of staying in my pajamas and doing my Zoom classes that way. This week's finals week, so that's kind of a normal day, just studying for finals. But when I'm not, it's just, I really like to scrapbook, and I've really been into painting, but doing like Bible verse paintings a lot. So that's been really fun to do and give out to people and mail to people and encourage them in those. But I also love movies. I know, Julie, you were talking about that earlier. I love watching movies too, and the Christmas movies are all out and going.
I know. Yes. Have you seen there's a Christmas movies advent calendar? It just came out. Like the films you should watch every day up to Christmas.
Not. I will have to check it out.
Yeah, you should Google that, Janice. You should totally Google that. It's worth it.
I will right after this.
Okay, so Janice touched a little bit on her hobbies as well. So girls, why don't you do the same? Tell me a little bit about your daily life and as well as your hobbies. Rachel, what about you?
So I am a morning person. So usually I get up like, I don't know, I love to go to bed at 10. That's like my favorite thing. So I wake up early and I start school kind of like as early as I feel like my brain can handle. And then I like try and maintain like regular hours. So I do school usually like 9 to 5 or 6-ish, depending on what time, how many breaks I take during the day. And sometimes it's a lot. So and then I love to walk outside. I do that probably like 30 or 40 minutes a day. I try. And then I love to knit, as you can see. And I paint too. I like to paint. And me and my brother, he lives with me and he's also doing online school. And we formed a little band. So we play music.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, amazing. What about you, Elaine? What's your daily life like and what are your hobbies?
So my normal day, now that I'm done with my final exams, I've kind of gotten back into my normal routine, which would normally be, I'm not a morning person, but I've had to adapt because, things don't wait. I'm just like, so I've had to, in the past 3-4 weeks, I think I have not had a day that doesn't have a meeting in it. So I've always had back-to-back meetings or platforms talk, or there is an event that I should be delivering a keynote speech at. So there's been those platforms that have just been forming up one another in the past couple of months, actually. So I've had that. And then normally it would be spending time with my colleagues that have become my friends and family now in Cape Town. So I normally spend roughly an hour to two with them every single day. I think they literally have became such a safe space. And I do that. But what I've also been doing that I didn't do this week actually is to watch the sunset. I'm a sunset person. I really so I leave my room just to go and chase sunsets. I haven't had time for that since Sunday because it would either be because I'm in a meeting or I overslept because I was taking a nap. So just be something standing in the way of that. So that has been what my normal day looks like, especially post examination. If I'm not in a meeting, I'm chasing sunsets. If I'm not doing that, I am sitting in bed watching a movie, only to find out that I'm literally sleeping, not even 10 minutes. So that has been typically what a day in my life looks like, especially in the month of November and December.
Hmm.
And hobbies. I think for me, public speaking is definitely a hobby. I think it really, really is. And hence, I don't see as work or as commitment that I have to be on all of these platforms. I enjoy them. And I think that is why so much time passes by with me
Mm.
either waiting for them or just being on the platform itself. And I really do not even see where time goes when I'm just so consumed in it. So public
Mhm.
speaking is a hobby for me, as well as running a charity drive. Like now in the before end of this year, actually, I will be running a charity drive under my nonprofit organization, The Rise of a Nation. And I think those are my hobbies. And yes, that is about me in a nutshell.
Really cool. Right. Why don't you guys who are watching us, why don't you tell us what your hobbies are? What do you like to do in your free time? So just tell us in the comments and I might read them out loud here for us. We would love to hear from you. We're going to move on into our next section in this conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit about your lives as students, because we are really interested in that. So you guys told us a little bit about the degree you're doing. So we know Rachel is doing accountancy and Janice is doing nursing, Elaine law. So why did you guys choose those degrees? Janice, why don't you tell us why did you choose the degree you're doing?
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to do something to help others and wanted my degree to be in that way. And I'm a very social person. I really like being around people and talking with people. And so my senior year of high school, I actually did a New Visions medical program where I got to shadow a bunch of different healthcare people. And I felt like nursing was where I wanted to be because they have the most interaction with the patients and like with people and hearing their story and really listening and being able to help them in some of the hardest times of their life, basically. And I really enjoyed that compared to other healthcare positions where they might not see the patients as much or have too many patients and things. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to help people, and then nursing just started to fit once I started shadowing and got to shadow a nurse and really talk to them, and just the wide array of different um, units I could go to. Like I don't have to stick to one thing. I can be a labor and delivery nurse or med surg, and so it's really cool all the opportunities I have within nursing, which I'm hoping to do some missionary medical work too with it. So really cool opportunities with it.
Great. What about you, Rachel? Why did you choose the degree you're doing?
I think I sometimes I'm still kind of in a process of working out what I want to do, what I want to do, but I chose accounting because it has like the most, like I don't think I'll be an accountant forever, but I am interested in like how finance is beneficial to the world. So there's like a lot of things you can do like to help with finance. Like if I pursued finance as a career, it's like helpful in many different settings, like nonprofits and stuff like that. So I'm interested in those aspects of finance. Yeah, so I think it's just like a really practical skill. And then if I decide that finance isn't what I want, it's still like an undergraduate degree that I can use to pursue a master's or something else. So
Great. What about Elaine? Why did you choose to be a law student?
So I chose law because I love speaking, number one. But also mainly because growing up I've seen how there's very little trust when it comes to our criminal justice system in South Africa.
Mm.
And been one of the people who were so hard on it, critiquing it because I felt there was so much that could be done that was just not being done. And I think to better understand why that much isn't being done or why the cracks black and white inside as they are from outside. I had to come closer and as close enough to the legal system of a country as knowing the ins and outs of it so I can better it, but also so that I can familiarize laymen to it, because there are very little people who are interested in the law until they're either on the wrong side of it or they needed to defend themselves against people who have violated them. And so I always wanted that, but also because I am, when it comes to Bill of Rights and advocating for what people deserve, the equal treatment that people deserve in society, and transformation in terms of getting to where we should be in societies and all of that. I think the only way to do that is to use policies, and that is something that if we do not transform to our advantage, then we'll just have to apply as it is. So I choose law because I'm really, really passionate about changing societies. I'm passionate about where we were not before, and I think that can be achieved by continuously pursuing a better tomorrow than what we would have had a week ago, a year ago, even a decade ago. That is why I
Great.
choose.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, being a university student can be really great. There's a lot of good things about that, but there are lots of challenges as well. So we'll go around and you guys can tell us, what do you enjoy the most about being at university, and what is the hardest thing as well? So tell us, like, both both extremes, let's say. Janice, why don't you start? Tell us, what do you enjoy about being a university student, and what do you think is very challenging?
Yeah. So I love the Elmira College that I chose. Perfect school for me. It is my senior year, so I've been here for 3 years now. This is my fourth. But just I love just being able to get involved. So not only am I double majoring, but I also just am able to be really involved in not only basic, which is our college ministry, Christian fellowship on campus, but also I'm in an all-female a cappella group, and I also help out with an event that raises money for NICU babies, specifically for our local Arnott Hospital, which is really cool, especially because I'm going to a nursing just to have that connection there, and to actually have been able to go into the NICU during clinicals to like see those babies that we're giving money to, which is really cool. I love theater too, so just being able to get involved and do theaters too. So it's just given me a lot of opportunity to do a bunch of different clubs and just hobbies and extracurricular stuff that I really enjoy, while also getting a really awesome degree in nursing. I think the hardest thing has definitely been nursing school. It's not easy, and I think senioritis is really hitting me right now. No. It's definitely real, and I forgot about it because I haven't been a senior in high school for a while. But yeah, the hardest thing has definitely just been classes. It's been pretty hard classes, but just getting through each one is really awesome. And I know we'll talk about this later, but obviously just being virtual right now has been pretty challenging too, especially being nursing, because a lot of the skills we learn are hands-on. So not being able to have the hands-on time is really makes it difficult and challenging to be able to reflect and think about the different things that are happening and take things you're learning in lecture into a clinical setting when we're not able to go into a clinical setting. So luckily we're starting to get back into the clinical setting, which is really nice, and hospitals are allowing students again. But yeah, definitely just being virtual, and then nursing school, hardest thing. But
Yeah. Elaine, what about you? Oh, Elaine disappeared. Oh, there she is. What about you? What do you enjoy the most about being a law student, and what have been some of the challenges you've had as a student?
I think my challenges as a student, so I'm also a student leader, and I think the biggest challenges that we have had as student leaders is to see how there is very little we want to advocate for and achieve, but there's very little room to do that. And that is because there's a whole system that we are trying to undo that is so organized and established, so much so that to even find a way around it, not so much to critique it, but to better it, because it's not entirely that everything about what is existing is wrong, but also there seems to be, especially now that we are moving into a digital time, so to be in a space where every effort that you make as a student, understanding the needs of other students that you are leading, it seems to be it seems to be hitting a rock, hitting against
Mm.
something that needs a lot more consistency, a lot more dedication that not many students are here for, because some students just want their degrees and then they want to leave the institution. But I think when you look at the bigger picture, you realize that the more we delay the process of achieving this that we want to achieve, it's the more generations ahead of us that we are depriving of actually enjoying the benefit of the change that we want the forefront of. So I think for me, that has been the greatest challenge to stand with this big conviction of how things can look, of what an ideal world, especially in institutions of high learning, could look like, but
Mm.
also be a situation where you can't entirely fight all of that because there seems to be very little with the same conviction or with the understanding of what pursuing a change in that particular direction would bring for you. So that is the great challenge that I've felt. Um, Insofar as the highlights, I think my here in the 4 years that I've been a varsity student, I think I've grown beyond what I could have ever imagined. And this has been even outside of enhancing my knowledge within law itself. I've had the opportunity of existing on platforms I would not have been exposed to if I was not in varsity. Because I think many of the people who have picked up some degree of potential in me are people I've met in this space or people I've met through people who have met me in this space. So I think the highlight of my 4 years as being a student will definitely come from the fact that every single time someone saw more in me than I did in myself, I got to understand that, oh, there's actually more I stand to offer. And that has been, it's been great. It's been great watching how people would stretch themselves thin just to watch me showcase what it is that I have to offer to the world in my lifetime and in this generation. I think that to me has been the greatest highlight of the 4 years that I've been here.
Cool. What about you, Rachel? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I love being a student actually. It's so fun. Um, I think like the thing I love is like in my program, I consider everything like a team effort pretty much. So I'm like anytime I'm like learning or like I like always do assignments with my friends. And so yeah, it's just like really I just like the social aspect of school a lot because like I don't really feel like I'm ever alone and that like I learn well with other people. So I enjoy that a lot. And like even friends that aren't in my program, I still just like see a lot. Like when I was like on campus, I used to like go rock climbing with my friends and yeah, there's just like so much fun things about university that and I worked for 8 months and I was like, wow, university is so much better than work when I did my internship. So anyways, yeah, I love being a student and I also love like the flexibility of it where it's just like today I have like I can like be involved doing this because I'm a university student or just like other things that I love I'm able to do because I'm a student. So I love that. Things that I don't love about school is oh, I had one. I can't think of it. Yeah, I think like some of the things that I find hard about school is like I get really stressed really easily. So like sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't study enough, or like I'm wasting time, or like I didn't do this right. So then I get really stressed. And so I find like that's something I miss about being a working person because as a working person, I feel like I wasn't that stressed. But then as a school, it's just like there's always more school to do. And it's like, can I really stop and take a break or should I study more? So I don't really enjoy that part of like trying to work through, yeah, those things. But
Yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, to find the balance as well. Great. Yeah, if you are a student and you're watching us, why don't you tell us what do you enjoy the most about being a student and why you think is the hardest thing about being a student? So, girls, now I want you to imagine that a student is planning on studying in the country where you are right now. So I have a student who is planning on studying in the States or in Canada or in South Africa. What advice would you give them if they're planning to come to your country? Janice, what advice would you give to someone trying to come to the States to be a student?
Yeah, I think I would say, well, first, one of my friends actually, she is an international student at Elmira College. She thought that Elmira College was in New York City. So
Mm.
first of all, I think really making sure you know where the school is and what you're looking for, because she was looking for the city and she ended up in upstate rural New York. And so it's very different for her. But I think the advice I would give is just really get involved. We have a lot of international students at Elmira College, and some of them aren't. They don't really get involved, so it's hard for them to make friends or reach out to like find people that maybe are from international students as well, or just meet new people. So they could be pretty lonely without that. So I think just as nerve wracking as it might be, just really reach out and get involved and meet new people. And I know personally for myself and a lot of students, it's just like we love it's just so cool even to like talk with Elaine here from Africa or you from Norwich, just to hear about life in a different country. And so I think any international student coming here, like we love to hear about it. And I feel uneducated on international students and how they live their lives back home and the difference it is here. So I think just, yeah, reaching out, meeting new people, and getting involved. And maybe if you don't like something, that's okay. Just try something else.
Mm.
Even if your English isn't that good, I don't. It's probably better than mine. I feel like every international student I've met, their English, wherever they're coming from, is always better. But yeah, so just get involved and push past those fears of that, I guess, would be my biggest.
Yeah, it's really good. Elaine, what about you? If a student is planning on coming to South Africa to study, what advice would you give them?
I think my advice would be present in the moment. There are many things that happen in South Africa that it'll take a person who's fully uh, deep into the moment and what is happening in the moment that they would pick it up. But
Mm.
apart from it's an amazing country, we have our flaws. We have a parliament that is one for the books, and I just feel like there are very tiny details of South Africa that are humorous. Some are very alarming, but when you look at the bigger picture, you realize it's homey, definitely homey. Apart from it being homey, things are relatively like you get a feel of different cities or provinces or even continents in South Africa because there are provinces where things are happening quite faster, and that would be Gauteng, where Johannesburg is. And then there are provinces where things are happening at a slower pace, that would be in Mpumalanga, where everyone is just busy with their own things and everyone is so deep into the business of another person, not from a point of I want to talk about you, but from a point of I genuinely care. I want to know your story. I want to know what you like. I am very interested in knowing you as a person. So it's homey in that extent. There are also
Mm.
provinces where things are just so slow and you feel like you are stagnant. And the only remedy to that is that move and expose yourself to a space where there's a lot of growth. But apart from that, I would say that make it a home. Like I think for me, I would have missed out on beauties of Cape Town if I came here and I was like, oh, I'm all alone. Because I was only 18 years of age at that time. But I allowed myself to be a part of the broader community and I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to learn how people live their lives and to learn the different cultures. And apart from the syllabus I get from class itself, I was able to genuinely be interested in what happens outside of that and what happens in the individual spaces of people. And that is the advice I'd give to anyone who wants to come to South Africa.
Yeah, that's great. Rachel, what about you? If someone is thinking of going to Canada, what advice would you give them?
I think, especially where I am, I think there's like a lot of resources for international students, and I think like a lot of Canadians, like, well, I know not probably everyone, but there are definitely a lot of students that are like open to like meeting international students and helping international students. Like I could think of like at least two groups on my campus that have like a mix of Canadian and international students, and like I help like facilitate an English class through my university group. So I think there's like lots of cool opportunities to meet Canadians and other international students when you like especially in my university, there's like a lot of international students from like many different countries. So yeah, I think just to like actually like search through the university and like find things where that are like specifically offered for international students, and then like to like just kind of like reach out to Canadian students too, and like just like be willing to like try and like make friendships, and like on residence you can like make friends, and like there's like a lot of cool opportunities. So like even though you are in like not in your home country, there's like a lot of opportunities to like share in like Canadian culture and just like Canadian friendship. And also like I have this one friend and she's Chinese, and like we used to hang out more, but now it's COVID, so I don't really see her. But when we were able to see each other, we would like do things together. Like one time she like cooked hot pot, so we had hot pot all together, and like we just like do fun things. And so I'm like, it's like really cool for me to get to experience like Chinese culture, but then like I can like tell her about like why things are the way they are in Canada if she has questions. Or yeah, so I've really enjoyed our cross-cultural friendship. So
yeah, so you all touched on the making connections theme, yeah, how important it is to build a community and to make connections with the locals in that community where you are. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard to make those connections, to find people like Rachel who is willing to learn about Chinese culture and exchange, have a cross-cultural friendship. But we, as Friends International, we are here to help you. So if you are an international student here in Norwich, we want to help you to make connections with locals. We know COVID is happening right now and we have loads of restrictions, but we are still allowed to meet up, to exercise outside, to go for walks. And we have loads of people volunteering with us who would love to get to know you as an international student, to help you to get a feeling for the city and to explore Norwich with you. So if you're interested in being linked up with a local, please message us on Facebook or on Instagram, or download our app, and we would love to help you to do that. We had a comment on our YouTube channel for Rachel. So Rachel Anthea says, I am glad that student life is great for you. Make the most of it. Don't be too hard on yourself. Working life is much harder. There you go. So take it easy.
yeah.
Enjoy being a student. Right, we are going to move on and talk a little bit about the pandemic. I think it's impossible to talk about student life in 2020 without talking about the pandemic. So it'd be great to hear from you guys how that has affected you, and you specifically as a student. So do you remember what your feelings were when COVID began to affect your country? So I imagine that it was at different times, at least for Canada, US, and South Africa. So do you remember what you felt when COVID started to affect your country, the country you are in right now? So Elaine, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about what it was like in South Africa when COVID happened.
So what happened in March, the president declared a national state of disaster. And the implications of that were that we called it level 5 lockdown. And that meant you could not go anywhere, like you were not allowed to get out of your house. And at some point, when you needed to even get essentials from the grocery stores, you would need a permit from your local government. So it was that bad. You couldn't be seen outside and all of that. And I think for someone like me personally, who's used to my my normal day is leaving my room early in the morning and returning in the evening. So for a person who's used to getting so much done in a short space of time, to now be in a position where there's very little you are getting done and you are just stuck at one place, you're not achieving anything, you're not ticking anything off the list. I I think for the most part of it, I felt really hopeless. Like it felt like I am stagnant. It felt like I was doing little with my youth, and I felt like I am just not making the most out of this year that I am in. So I felt mostly hopeless, but also that I was wasting time I do not have. And I think that's when I got to learn the whole concept of productivity being effective as well as rest. Because I think I would not have managed or even had a slightest clue about myself, my interests, my capabilities, my weaknesses, and all of that if I didn't have that time where there was little to do in the outside world, because I was exposed to my own company and being by myself, so I had to pay attention to those things, had to pay attention to how I react to certain circumstances, and then pursue working on that and making sure that I just become the person I want to be. And if
Mm.
anything, those months of not being allowed to do anything, to go anywhere, to interact with anyone, they have prepared me for the moments that I've had after that, like for every space that I've occupied since then. I think I went into the pandemic being a poorer version of myself. And I think now I am happier that I had a time to sort of be away from the world and come back to what is now the new norm, considering COVID, and that not everything is back to normal, and be understanding and mindful of the fact that even if you are not getting anything done, if you are just breathing and if you're just letting life be as you go in this new norm, then you are doing as much as you need to do.
Yeah. Janice, what about you? What were your feelings? How did it happen in the US?
Yeah. So just specifically for my area, at the start, it was very confusing. So, and I felt that, just confused. Obviously, still, there's so many opinions about COVID and what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and are masks good, are masks bad, just all of the conversations. And so at the very beginning too was like, is this a big deal or is this not a big deal? Like, are we overreacting? Or are we not overreacting? For my college specifically, we stayed longer than most schools. A lot of schools, when it was first starting, like sent home right away. Were sent home right away. We weren't, and like actually, yeah, I was in clinical and got an email during clinical that we were being sent home for the rest of the term, and it was right before spring break, and so it seemed like we were coming back afterwards, spring break, but then we ended up not coming back at all. So just very like vague and confusing, but because no one knew really what was happening. And I think for me, I'm not a very go with the flow kind of person. I'm a planner, but definitely something that COVID has been helping me with is just trying to go with the flow more and like whatever's going to happen. But yeah, I just remember feeling confused on what was happening and just trying to remind myself that everyone is, even the people making the decisions for our country are confused. They don't know they can't predict it. And so just trying to show them grace in that way too, of like, why are we getting frustrated at them when they're trying their best too, but just a lot of different opinions and things going on in my head at the beginning of it, and trying to figure out for myself, what do I think and what do I believe in it. So yeah, definitely that was confusion. One word.
Yeah. Rachel, what about you? What was it like for you when it all started?
I think I kind of relate to Elaine with just like when COVID started for me, I was doing an internship. So I was actually working like at a normal job, like doing 8 to 4 kind of thing. And then I was like still involved in my campus group. So every day I would work from 8 to 4:30, and then every evening for at least 3 hours I would be out like doing university activities. So I was like a mix of a student and a working person, and like it was fine, but I just like didn't really have any downtime. Like I was always doing something. So then when COVID happened, like either everything got canceled or it went online, so I just like had like way more time. And then I was just like blown away by like, yeah, I think I just like realized like I like was like feeling bad when COVID first started, because I was like, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm just like sitting here at home and like I need to do something. And then that was like something that I feel like I learned about like rest during COVID, where I was just like, oh, like it's a gift to be able to like not be somewhere right now and just like be at home and like to just sit here and like I always valued like doing something and like being productive, and then I realized like there's like work and rest are like both good and like both equal, and it's not like I need to work all the time, like I need to rest too. And so I feel like that was like a gift that I like learned during the first kind of lockdown. Yeah, and it's like really cool because as like a Christian, there's this thing called Sabbath, and it's like every week, one day a week, you like take a day off. And as a student before, I never did this because I was like, I have too much to do. And I was like always really stressed. And then during COVID, I started to like really intentionally practice a Sabbath, even though I had more time. So it's like, oh, it's easy to practice when you have more time. But I was like, I want to like learn how to do it while I have time, and then as life gets busier, I can like have a practice of it. And so then this term I've been like being a student, so my life is busy again, and like I kept like that practice of Sabbath, and I'm just like really thankful for it because I feel like I'm just really grateful because I think God like helps us, and even though we like work through kind of like mundane things in life, God like gives us rest, and we don't have to work all the time because he like helps us and like like works for us too. So I feel like I can rest in the fact that God works and I work and I don't have to do it all. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really helpful. Yeah, so you all touched a little bit on online learning. Everything went virtual, everything was online. So yeah, please share with us a little bit of your experience learning online. How did you find it? How do you find it right now? Janice, why don't you kick us off?
Definitely.
What are your thoughts on online?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was really good, Rachel. Yeah, definitely felt disappointment at first too, with everything being canceled too. But for my experience of online learning, I think being online has made like a lot more work actually than making it less. So I've really felt, especially because for a while my clinicals, since I'm a nursing major, I also have to do clinicals, which is it's usually twice a week for 4.5 hours each. So it's a big chunk of time. And because we weren't actually being in the hospitals, we had to make it all up virtually, which incorporated 2 days a week of 4.5 hour clinicals and assignments to make up for that. And so I just had a lot more work. So I personally don't feel I learn as well being virtual. So it was definitely a thing of learning for me of how can I be as successful as I want to be now that I'm virtual. And I think it was definitely just a process of learning Zoom. I had honestly never heard of it before COVID, and now I will never not hear of it. But just getting used to lectures being online and being at home. When I first started online learning, I was at home because we were sent home from campus. And so on top of that, just being in like being on campus in that setting, so much easier to be a student, I feel like, than being at home where you're used to just going home for breaks. And so you don't have homework and stuff to do when you're home for breaks. So just trying to find that balance too of my online learning as well as like my time with my family. Hey, I know I'm home, but I'm also still in school right now. So it's definitely been a learning experience, and I feel like I'm getting better at it now, but I also lately have been feeling like I'm ready to be back in person again. Just getting a little tired of being online, but I'm just grateful too, just that we can continue to work online, and grateful for my professors just because I know they're working twice as hard as they would be if we were in person, making sure that we're learning what we need to learn and being able to continue the path and not have to get set back a year or anything like that. And so I've been really grateful for that the Lord's been, showing me the gratefulness of that, that we can still be in school. So a mixture of both.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. What about Elaine? Elaine, how has your experience been with learning online?
So I was a part of this conversation on YFM yesterday, and we were discussing online learning and how effective it has been. I think in the context of many students who form a part of the community of higher learning, the feeling or the sentiments have been the same. And it's that there was very little learning that we're doing, just making sure we are meeting deadlines. And this included, even if you don't understand what the assignment question is, you're just going to try and do it because you need the mark for it. So I think that has also posed a question that we cannot avoid on the quality of the throughput our institution will be releasing into the workforce in 2020, because I think we have not been adequately equipped. And this is because, in not pointing fingers, I do not think there's anything anyone could have done better, given the fact that circumstances were not allowing and they were entirely new to both the students and the educators. So I feel there was little learning done, there was little teaching done, and it fell upon each stakeholder to just try and maneuver around the new norm that we find ourselves in. So there wasn't any learning that has happened. I do not think I know, in terms of academics rather, I do not think I know anything I did not know before we got into the pandemic. And it's quite a sad reality that we find ourselves in, that this is the very same group that is going into the workforce by end of 2020. And there's little knowledge that we have gained, especially in the year 2020.
Oh, yeah. Rachel, what about you? Tell us about your thoughts on online learning.
Yeah, I think I relate to Janice in that I think it is a lot more work. Like, I think it's a lot of, like, for me, upfront work too, where it's just like every week there's some sort of thing I need to do. Like, when I used to take classes in person, it would be like you'd have like 2 or 3 or 4 assignments, a midterm, and a final, and that's like all of your coursework. But you just like study in between. And then now it's like weekly assignment, weekly quiz, like midterm, project, final. And so I just find it's like so much to do every week. And then the other thing that's really interesting is, like, normally in my degree, finals are worth like anywhere between 35 and 70% of your grade. And then this year, like, one of my classes that would normally have like a 40 or 50% final, the finals were 20%. I have one final that's worth like 14%. So the courses are just structured like really differently. But actually, like, I kind of mind because I like exams, because I like the fact that you just like study, and then you like write it, and then I like forget everything as soon as the course is over, which is probably bad. But I like definitely do better in exams than I do on like projects and stuff like that, because I just find that I just study enough that I can like do well on the exams. So I kind of miss that aspect of school. And then I also find, like, in my degree, there's like a lot of collaboration with like projects and stuff. So that makes online really hard, because you have to like do like tons of like WebEx, or like you're doing like a collaborative Google Doc, but you don't really meet. So then sometimes things are just being like thrown on the paper and you're just hoping for the best. So in that way, and it's like hard too, because at least if it was like in person, you would meet and you'd get to know each other. But online, it's like, I don't know you. Like, some people aren't even in my country right now because they're international students. So then it's like we're just on a totally different page. So in that way, I'm like, I miss in-person learning a lot. But
yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't stopped to think about the collaborative work online. Yeah, that must be really hard. Right. I feel like 2 last questions for us before we wrap up. So when we talk about COVID, when we talk to people about COVID and ask them how they felt or how they're feeling right now, a lot of people say fear, uncertainty, and loneliness. These 3 feelings have been really common experience for almost everyone. So tell me if you felt any of these emotions, so fear, uncertainty, or loneliness, and if you did feel these emotions at any point, how you coped with it. So that's my first question, and I'd like to answer my second question as well, sharing with us one thing that you learned during the pandemic crisis that made a difference in your life. Like, what do you take away from this experience? So 2 questions in one. I hope, yeah, that's okay. So Janice, would you be ready to answer that? So tell us if you felt any.
Yeah.
I thought you would be ready. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the one I actually have felt pretty at peace with it, which has been really nice. It hasn't really been an issue for me in it, and I really do think that's because of the Lord. I am a Christian as well, and so I think that, yeah, just that aspect. But in terms of loneliness, um, I think I felt it in a different way, and I think it's probably actually a more spiritual way because with COVID, the churches were shut down as well, being virtual, not being able to be with your church family, and so I think that kind of loneliness I did feel. In terms like when the pandemic started, and we were sent home at first, kind of what Rachel and Elaine was talking about, we're very involved people. And so I actually really enjoyed the break, I think. I was like, wow, I actually get to rest now, like they were saying, which is cool. And so I wasn't really feeling loneliness then because I was just kind of ready to be alone for a little bit. But coming more into this year, I've definitely felt it a little more in terms of my church community and not being as present with them. Um, Luckily, I have two roommates, and so I was able to be with them during the pandemic now. So I wasn't lonely in that aspect of having roommates, but I think the biggest one is definitely uncertainty for me of just, again, I just trusting, like I know the Lord has whatever's happening, and I fully believe that. But just the uncertainty of school, things are constantly and we're constantly changing. We're virtual one week, we're in person next week. We have to get COVID tested this week. This week we don't have to. You can't travel here, but you can travel here. And so all the uncertainty of that was really stressful, especially academically for me. Of am I gonna graduate on time? Like, am I going to be able to finish what I need to in order to graduate? And just the uncertainty of that, or having to cross out all these things in my planner, had all these things planned, and then the uncertainty, okay, if I'm planning this, will it actually happen, or am I just going to be disappointed when it doesn't? And so those kind of emotions were going through me. And I think the biggest ways that I coped was just trying to be as positive as I could without being fake for myself and for others. I think there's so much, like, just trying to look at the good and the things that are coming out of this, and being thankful. I do have FaceTime, and there's different ways to be able to deal with the loneliness, and it might be different than what we're used to, but trying to help cope with those things. And the uncertainty is the going with the flow kind of thing and trusting in the process. It's a big stretching thing for me. But I think that kind of leads into the biggest thing that I've learned during this pandemic so far is just planning is good, but also being prepared for your plan not to go the way you want it to. And I think as a Christian, that just happens in general. Like the Lord's like, no, you thought that, but that's not happening. But especially because I am such a planner, like I have a schedule weeks out in advance. With the pandemic and all the uncertainty, every plan that I had was being changed in some way. And so just really growing in that of, okay, things are going to change, that's okay. And coping with that in that way and understanding that what I still want to get done and need to get done is still going to happen. And so definitely just learning to go with the flow a little bit more and not be so strict with my plan.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Elaine, what about you? Have you experienced any fear, uncertainty, loneliness? And if you did, how did you cope with it? And then tell us about the one thing you take away with you from this experience of pandemic and COVID and everything.
All right. I think insofar as fears are concerned, the biggest fear I've had was to, especially upon realizing that I stood to offer a lot more than I've always known. My greatest fear has always been not to leave that out fully. My greatest fear has always been to hold back in moments where I should have entirely allowed myself to enter a space and make the most meaningful contribution I was in a position to make in that position. So my fear is never to show up fully or never to give as much as I am in a position to give in any space whatsoever. And I think feelings of loneliness, I have felt lonely. And I think uh, how that has assisted me or how I have made it out of that was to make sure that I am, apart from having people that I work with in different spaces, I've also ensured that I enable those spaces to be safe enough for me to come clean about how I feel and about when I am underwhelmed. So instead of just being this strong figure that goes into the world and motivates people and all of that, I've allowed certain people to be as intimate into my personal space, so much so that they would be able to tell when I am not okay, even if I'm facing or out the strength that I do not even have. So I think I've had the biggest support system in this year, especially considering everything that happened that I felt should not have happened or that I felt I was not in a position to be able to handle. So that has been what I have felt in most of the time. And when it comes to what I have learned, I think I've learned that things do not happen because I want them to happen, but because I'm in a position where if they were to happen, I would not be a threat to their sustainability or they would not be a threat to my character. And that enables me to understand that if I apply for something and I do not get it, then I was not ready for it or it was not ready for me. You know, there is just no way in heaven or in hell that I would miss something that I am ready for in terms of character, in terms of the state of my being entirely as an individual. So I've learned that whatever misses me is not missing me, and whatever I miss, I am not missing it because then it would mean that we were just not at that particular point in time going to assist each other get to a place where we have served fully humanity in the time that I exist in. So that has been my sentiment in the pandemic.
Great, thank you. Rachel, what about you? Tell us a little bit about if you experienced any of those feelings we talked about, and if you did, how you coped with it, and what lesson you take away from this experience of COVID and pandemic.
Yeah, I think probably in the first lockdown, I think it was really, I kind of relate to Janice in that I was like super busy. So then being home was like, I was like, oh, I can like breathe a little bit. So I felt like a little bit better. But I also lived with like my brother and his wife, and like we went like during school and like work, I would like never be home for supper. And then every single night when I was in, like when we were at home, we ate together, which I thought was like really helpful. And then now in Canada, like we're kind of almost in a second lockdown where we only have, like we're allowed 5 people in our house, but that's like including your house. So I have 4 people that live at my house, including me. So we don't invite anyone over, or else we'd almost exceed our limit. So we're kind of in like a second lockdown. And I think that was like, it just happened like a few weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, they enacted this new rule. So I was like really, really, really sad. And like I'm like really social. So I love to like I was like meeting people, like I went to their houses before and now I don't go into anyone's house. So I was like really sad. And yeah, I think it like helped me to just like, I talked to one of my friends about it and she's like, it's okay, like you're allowed to be sad about these things. And so it was like really helpful for me to just like allow myself to be like, yeah, this is really sad and I'm like really don't wish that this was happening, but like I'm sad. And I think it was just helpful for me to like have space to just say that I was sad. But then also to realize that like there is hope outside of these current situation. Like I don't necessarily hope, like I would love for restrictions to lift, but I realize like I can't place my hope in the fact that restrictions might lift because at some point they might get worse too. So if I'm placing my hope in the restrictions being lifted, like then I'm going to be disappointed. But yeah, I've just been like really grateful that like God is more firm than the restrictions are, so I don't have to like, wonder about like what God feels about all these things, or like what he feels about us. Like, I know all of those things are the same, whether there's a pandemic or not. And I know that God is like for us, and that he loves us, and that he walks with us, and like feels all the things that we feel. And like when I'm sad, like he also is like sad with me. So yeah, I take hope in that we don't like depend on the world to get better, to like continue to, you know, do what we do in the world. So yeah, I think like rest is something that I learned, as I like previously shared, but then also like I feel like this lockdown I've been learning a lot about just like I don't place my hope or my like soul joy on the fact that like restrictions might get better, because they might get worse. But I'm like trying, I'm not perfect, I struggle with this still, but like trying to like look to God and like ask for his like perspective, and like see that like there's more hope just beyond like what my current government like lockdown restrictions are. Like there's like a really big hope in Jesus. So
That's great. Well, thank you so much, girls. Thank you so much, Elaine, Rachel, and Janice. It's been great chatting to you. So helpful. Such great things to think about. I wish you all the best with your finals, with your exams. I hope you have a good Christmas.
You too.
Thank you. And if you're a student in Norwich, keep up with our Facebook page, with our app, to find out about our program for this month. If you're free tomorrow at lunchtime, we have a Zoom cafe where you have a chance to chat to some locals and practice your English. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed our chat. See you next time.